Welcome to the New Process Podcast. Learn all the tools, methods, and best practices combined with people, emotions, and a human-centric mindset to rethink your process and push it to the next level. And here is your host, Mirko Kloppenberg.
Yeah, welcome to episode 34 of the New Process Podcast. Today, we're going to wrap up all the learnings from the tool interviews on my journey to find a human-centric BPM tool. But did I really find one? We'll find out in this episode. And I will not be doing this wrap up alone, but I have invited a special guest. Today, Martin Holling is going to join me. Martin is one of the New Process Podcast listeners who have listened to every single episode, and he's a real BPM enthusiast. Martin has been working for Siemens in various process management positions in Siemens Energy sector for nearly 20 years. During that time, he developed and implemented a BPM framework that covered a lot of the new process principles, but without even knowing it. After leaving Siemens, he worked as a senior BPM consultant for 4 years. Today, he is head of process management at Chemnabau, one of the largest road construction companies and street infrastructure providers in Germany. In parallel, he is offering his experience as a self-employed management consultant at livingprocesses.de. As much as time besides work and his family, he's married and has 3 daughters, allows, he is singing in the local choir and restoring a classic car together with his brother. In this episode, you'll learn about the results of all the tool interviews I conducted throughout the last year to find a human-centric BPM tool. But did I really find one? Let's find out. Enjoy the interview with Martin Holling.
And now, let's start to rethink processes.
Yeah, welcome, Martin, to the New Process Podcast. I'm super curious what today's episode will bring because we are reviewing the many tool interviews I did during the last year together. So you are one of the power listeners of the New Process Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you very much. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I'm super curious. And you know the procedure. We're always starting with a check-in. So the first question there is, what do you prefer in an aircraft, aisle or window seat?
Well, for sure, this is depending on the process. Yeah. Actually, I really prefer the window seat when I am on a longer flight and like to take a view outside and do not like to be disturbed so much during the flight. But on a short flight, or mainly when I'm on interconnecting flights and the stopover is kind of in a tight schedule, I prefer the L seat because I'm one of those persons that really is then squeezing himself out of the plane when I have had some terrible stopovers. So that was not really fun. So that came to the idea of using the aisle seat on stopover flights, on short flights.
Yeah, me too. Okay. And what is your favorite airport?
Yeah. Also, this is, not really process, but mainly my own heart feeling thing. So I do not have a favorite airport for business flights, but when I'm not a frequent flyer, but when I'm doing a flight, then I like the airport that comes together with positive emotions, with positive rememberings. And so that's then for me the Tenerife Sur, Reina Sofia Airport, because this is for sure an airport named after a beautiful queen is always nice, but this is an airport where I have the best memories of living there for some years, and Tenerife still is my home of my heart, and I use that airport a lot. It's small. It does have everything you need, but you don't need to use ground transportation, and it's nice.
Okay.
But then again, for business, it's always the bad experiences that come to my mind, and the most horrible airport I know is Chicago O'Hare. That's the stopover airport of the northern U.S. states, and it's so horrible because I got lost there several times. My luggage got lost there several times. It never went well on the stopovers there. Once I even was rushed from one flight to another by people from the airline on a private car on the airfield because they never manage anything, and it's too big and it's really ugly and horrible.
Okay, then what was the best process you have ever experienced?
Yeah, I was thinking about this quite some, and I being a process guy, I think the best process is always the process that you do not experience, that you are in a process.
Yeah.
So it's hard. I can't tell, because the best process I definitely was in some really good processes, but as I didn't recognize them, is because they were so good.
Yeah.
But there's something like a meta phase of this, a meta experience I had on good process, and that was being a process expert, BPM expert. I was called into a meeting of all the EHS experts and representatives of the Siemens Energy sector, and they were suffering from, lucky for Siemens, they were not suffering from fatalities in their construction sites, on the big construction sites for Siemens, but some of the contractors, or you couldn't put it on the contractors itself, but when there were fatalities, and there were regularly 1 or 2 fatalities per year in this big business, unfortunately, but those then were with the contractors. And so they were looking for a contractor management process for EHS. And they had a 1-week workshop session about this, only this one topic. And they were discussing already for the second day. And then they asked me, come in and help us. We need a process expert to help us to get to this process. So I was listening in on the second day, more or less the whole day, listening in, not saying a word, taking my notes, directly modeling the process in our modeling software next to them discussing. And then at the end of the day, just at the end, I said, can I have 10 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
And I presented them what I have modeled over the day. And it was eye-opening. So the people were not coming to any conclusion throughout the whole day. And then I presented them, in 5 minutes, I presented them the process that they were discussing. Then in the end, it was the process that they put into the system for EHS contractor management. And in the evening event afterwards, they came to me and say, oh, without you, we would have been discussed for weeks more. We never found it. It was so eye-opening, so just there, the process. So that was kind of a good process experience, but on the meta phase.
Yeah, cool. No, that's super cool. And I think I already have an idea, but how would you describe your personal relationship to processes?
Well, actually, it's a little bit like all time I can remember of my life, I was always drawn towards and between efficiency and effectiveness. And just during my academic career, during my academic studies, I learned that this is kind of the DNA of process management. So that was, for me, it was clear when I was 12 years old, I want to become industrial engineer. So I want to combine commercial things and technical things in my work life and work for efficiency and effectiveness. Then for sure, 25 years ago, I was writing my diploma thesis on process management. That was not really in everyone's minds at that time in the end of the 90s already. And since then, I've always been working in that area, mainly focusing on the improvement of processes, on the connection of people and processes. And this is also why that all came into the direction of what you are also promoting, this human-centric process management. So engaging people with process. And I always was looking into this more from the quality management point of view than from the IT point of view. So this is the focus that most tool providers have. They're always looking on IT, on automation, on digitalization. This is important, but the people are more important for me. And the quality management side is more looking into the people of the processes. So this is kind of my personal relation to process, so to say.
Yeah, I love it. That's perfect for this episode to review the tool interviews.
Yeah, maybe that's why you choose me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you told me you listen to all podcast episodes. Is that true? Did you really listen to all new process podcast episodes?
When I was starting my new work, the company I started work for at the beginning of this year, I was looking on, okay, how can I bring process management best towards a company that does not have a process management maturity yet? And I was looking into the link to just get and know, okay, what's out there, especially what are the tools that are there, since I was dealing with a lot of different tools in my consulting area before. And I was just looking for information about process management, and found you and found New Process Lab in LinkedIn. And the first episode was like the tool exploration about EPC, this tool from interfacing. And I listened into that podcast and immediately found a lot of my ideas visible there, or audible there. I just saw all those ideas that I had about process management were reflected in the podcast. So I stepped back and I went back to episode 1 and started listening from episode 1 in sequence through all through the whole podcast. So yeah, and this is more or less how we got in contact, because sure I started commenting and we started to chat outside LinkedIn and the comments and all this kind of stuff. So that's how we got in touch.
Yeah, super cool. And now you're part of the podcast. You are in the podcast. You're a guest here.
Yeah. Well, I hope I can transport a little bit of my expertise into this, because what I like about the podcast is that there is such a high density of knowledge, of experience, and of good ideas towards this human-centric process management approach that is also has been covered my whole work life on process management, all these ideas all the time. And I was always looking for something like this. And I realized by being in contact with you and looking and listening to the podcast, I realized that, oh yes, this is kind of the methodology. This is kind of the strategy of process management that I was always following for the last 25 years without having a clear structure methodology name for it. Yeah. Like you have developed now with the New Process Lab.
Yeah. Yeah, super cool. And which was your favorite episode up to now?
That's hard, because it's such a high quality and very consistent podcast series that's really hard to think about. The good thing is the most interesting episode for me were those that were really focusing on the collaboration, on the communication. So bringing the people in there and collaborating and communicating the process. So the community episode.
Yeah,
with
Mika Lennon.
Yeah, this was really, really great, and also then the about the how to communicate a process. So it was in the middle, so 11, 12.
Ole Tillman, how to pitch a process.
Yeah, this one also. Yeah, guide with Ole Tillman, how to pitch a process. For sure, I immediately bought the book.
Yeah, it's still here.
Yeah, right. And
the only book next to my desk.
Yeah, I have it on my desk in my office.
Yeah, cool.
Because that's where I have to pitch a lot right now, because people are right now not really understanding. Not yet all of them are understanding what I'm up for. They always say, "Okay, what do you want to do here?"
Yeah.
For them, it's everything new, and for me, it's like, come on. You did this for years. You just don't have a structure for it.
Yep, exactly. That's super cool. Yeah, then let's dive into the tool topic. Just a disclaimer before we are going to talk about the tools. And this is also valid for all the other episodes. So I'm not, in this case, we are not getting paid for this discussion, right? It's our pure interest to understand the tools and to share our findings with the community. So there is no money flowing to our accounts.
Right. And actually the view or the lookout for the tool I'm searching, because we do not have a tool yet. And I'm searching for the tool that I really want to implement there. So this is what brought me in contact with a lot of those tool providers as well. And this is why I was also listening in and really checking all those ideas that came out of your podcast.
Yeah, very good.
It's not that anybody is going here and wants to promote his tool through us, but actually it's more like I'm on the search for a tool for our company, and let's see.
Yeah, perfect. So then, what are the, I would say, 3 main criteria for your tool selection process?
Yeah, actually, important for me is for sure, as I'm very much focused on people, is the possibility of collaboration. So people should really have a very simple to use tool, so that they do not have to go study for weeks to understand how to use the tool, but really it should be intuitive. They should go in there and say, well, yeah, okay, now let's just bring my process into the tool, or adapt information, or amend, or whatever, discuss, give feedback. This should all be very intuitive, very important. Another thing, really, the collaboration, as I said, getting feedback from the users, discussing this with the experts, making sure that this will be incorporated in the next better process implementation, so to say, for that process. That's very important. And although right now for the company I work for, it's not important, but for me as a process expert, it's important that the tool should somehow be future-proof, meaning that the future ideas of automation, digitalization, process mining, process simulation, that should be possible with that tool so that you could go forward. And there I have some ideas in mind of why not having a digital process you walk through in augmented reality, virtual reality, and do your work while you are walking through the process. This is kind of very futuristic, but maybe.
Yes, super cool. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, very good. And which tools have you been using in the past? Just as information to our listeners.
Yeah, actually, the most and broadest experience with using ARIS from my Siemens years, because when I was in Siemens and part of the BPM community there in Siemens, responsible for the business process management for the Siemens Energy sector, we were using ARIS in excess. It's hard for the users, good for the experts, how to say, that we tried to come up, because at that time there wasn't even a front end for the users for ARIS. It was a true IT tool. And we were trying to come up with a visualization front end for ARIS. We used GBTech in their very early beginning years. So we created a visualization front end that was kind of one of the predecessors, I would say, for the actual big platform from GBTech. So I have kind of understanding of that tool by having used kind of a predecessor of it, and also very deeply. And then in my consulting times, when I was doing business process management consulting for some years in different companies all over, from small ones to really big ones, I was using always the tool that the client wanted to use or had in use already. So that was like Signavio, Camunda. It was Adonis, it was Symbio also, and Pisagi. So from small, simple tools to big, real sophisticated tools, even ARIS I was using at one point. So I was always very tool open, and this is also what I brought into the new position right now. I'm very open and want to find the best possible use for a tool in our company.
Okay, quite some similarities, I'd say. So with regards to my experience, I also started with Casewise, using Casewise at Lufthansa Cargo in 2002, I'd say. And then when I switched to Lufthansa Technik, we introduced ARIS as the back end. And we had same problems, that there was no user-friendly front end. And then we started to develop our own front end. In between, we also used parts of GBTech, which they were offering there. And in the end, we had our own process excellence ProX tool within the Lufthansa group, which we developed and operated on our own. In addition to that, I had some contacts to GBTech in some consulting activities as well. So that's basically what I had before I started my search for a tool. And since I'm doing a lot of consulting now and also doing tool selection process with customers, I had the chance to look at a number of different tools. So in addition to the interviews, I had a look onto Consens, Adonis, Enes, Nintex or Nintex. I'm still not sure how to pronounce this tool, and some more. So way more than just the ones that were in the podcast. But that was super interesting.
Yeah, for me also, from the podcast, there are some tools that I didn't know before. Some tools I had known before. And I have other tools also where I'm in contact with that I was also using, but that are not in the podcasts yet.
Yeah. Okay. So my main criteria or my main purpose for the tool I'm looking for is basically to create a common picture of a process. So I already said, for me, it's some kind of an art to map a process. this procedure to have people sitting together to create this common picture of a process, and then use this picture of the process throughout the different phases of the new process lifecycle. So from process purpose, to think about process strategy, put it into design, and then use the map process to communicate the process to the people. So it's always human focused there. It's not about automation, even if automation for sure is part of what I'm exploring in the podcast and in all the new processlab.com activities on the higher maturity levels. But my focus there is always on the people. They should use the tool to understand how to execute a process in trainings and so on. So that's the main purpose. And therefore, my main criteria are: first, the tool should have a simple and modern and easy to use interface. So designed with the employees in mind, not the experts. That's often the problem, I'd say. The second criteria is that the tool should support simplified modeling notation. So BPMN 2.0 for sure is standard in most of the tools, but for me, that's way too complex for normal employees, way too complex to understand. So I just focus on the roles, the activities, decisions, hopefully in a simple template, to have always the same framework we are looking at to make it easy for the people to understand. And I'm also looking for, and that's my third criteria, features to involve and to excite the people, to excite the employees with different features, like a role assignment, feedback, to be able to like processes, gamification aspects. That's what I'm looking for. And also to make the people visible. So, for example, showing to the users who is the architect of this process, to have a person to talk to with regards to feedback and so on.
Right. Actually, I really can understand this, and I can follow with this ideas. And a lot of this is really more or less the same ideas that I have. And the simple to use notation is not one thing that I also think about. Yeah, it's important because this is going with the intuitivity and the usability of the processes for the users. And that's the one. And also, this is where the maturity comes into play. And I have been in my career, I have been doing a lot of process maturity assessments on different organizations. And with the maturity of the organization in process management rising, the people start asking for higher sophisticated functions in the tool. So once they have reached a process maturity that's high enough that they think of, okay, now, why not try to automate part of this?
Yeah.
So they want to do this. So in the end, for me, the BPMN or other high sophisticated notation is only to go the step once the maturity is high enough for the people that they want to make use of such functionality. And that should be kind of at least in the add-ons on a tool or whatsoever that you can make use of it. And in the end, thinking about how it could be actually also integrating AI into process tools, it could very easily be that you can document a process in whatever way, and a high sophisticated notation enabling the process to be automated or digitalized or whatsoever, process mined or whatsoever, can be kind of automatically produced in the background, not by the people, but by the tool itself.
Yeah.
So, but this is where it comes to those ideas, and also what you said with the features for the people and the tool. That's what also I said when I was thinking about why not walking through your process in a virtual reality, being inside your process. This is features for the people that they really can feel the process, so to say.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I remember I have a contact from the past who is working on virtual reality topics. Maybe that's another interesting guest to explore that in more detail.
Why not?
That's cool. Yeah. But now let's review the interviews. So what we're going to do now is just go through interview by interview in the order how the interviews had happened. So starting with score, which was the first one. And I think it's best if we just talk about the highlights that we remember of these episodes or of the tools. So it could be different for the different tools, but hopefully entertaining for the users here, for the listeners here. Yeah.
I hope it's different because we do have different perspective on it. I was a listener and you were kind
Yeah.
of part of the interview, so should be a different experience in that.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So the first interview was with Craig Willis. He's co-founder of Score, and that's also the name of the tool. Score is a UPN process management tool, I'd say. So they are focusing using UPN. Craig is one of the co-inventors of UPN. To be honest, I'm not so familiar with UPN right now. I'm planning an interview with Walter Brill. He's one of the other co-inventors.
Right. I had a very interesting discussion with him. That was really good because, for sure, due to this LinkedIn bubble we are in, he contacted me and we were discussing pros and cons of different notations in any, I don't know which post it was on LinkedIn, but we were discussing in the comments, and then he said, "Let's have a chat." That was really, really interesting. So it's good to talk to him because he has a very clear view on UPN and a clear view on what really is important to have as a notation for processes. He also was in the What's Your Baseline podcast. That was a very, very interesting episode as well.
Okay, let's see. So recording is still open, but I'm looking forward to that. But with regards to Score, what I really like about the tool is this lean and clean design approach. So a lot of white space, it's very structured, easy to use, even if I'm still missing the swim lanes in the modeling, but that's a UPN topic, I'd say. But the tool itself is super lean and clean. That's what I really love about that. What about you?
Actually, I'm with you on the missing swim lanes. For me, it's the same. Actually, I'm not a huge fan of UPN, but maybe because I'm too much a kind of process nerd, so to say, because for me, the UPN is hiding the roles too much and thinking about a human-focused process. The roles are so important, and it's so hard to visualize them. And in UPM, they are hidden too much inside the activities for me. So that doesn't criticize the tool, but it's more or less a criticism on the notation that I do have. So I also think that it's a very simple to use tool to just map a process, because you do not have a lot of functionality to put in there. You just note down what you're doing, so to say, what you're using for it, who's doing it, and whatsoever. Then this is really nice, and I like it's clean, but also for me, the navigation through a landscape coming from this is the whole company towards this is the end-to-end process, one of them, and then going into the process until you are in the specific process step or activity of a process. This is for me something very important for the users to keep an overview, because process management should have a big stake in breaking up the silos of the organizations, and you need to have this navigation. And there is also, when you're focusing too much on simple documentation of a single process, then for sure sometimes the navigation part and the overview part is lacking a little bit. And this is also what I'm missing a little bit in Score. But maybe it's because I'm not 100% familiar with it. I just got to look into the details as far as I could so far.
Yeah. Actually, a former colleague of mine who was very much used to the swim lane methodology, which we were using within the Lufthansa group, he listened to the interview in autumn last year, and he immediately tried out Score, and he fell in love with the tool, even if there are no swim lanes. And I talked to him, and he was super excited about Score. So you definitely should have a look at that if you are looking for a tool and want to see something different compared to all the other swim lane options out there. Yeah, cool. Okay, then the next interview was about ARIS, and there I talked to Kasper Jans and J.M. Erlandson. A nice combination. I'd say that was the most funny interview I've ever had until now.
I enjoyed the podcast as well, actually.
Yeah. There, as I already said, I've been using ARIS. I'm not sure which version number it was. For sure, 7.2, something like that. Somewhere 2005, 6, 7, 8, around that. And then we migrated to ARIS 9, I think, before we switched over to our own tool completely. And in the podcast, I learned that they are now having ARIS 10 which looks completely different. And it has really great interface improvement. So it looks beautiful. And I'd say, and as JM gave this example, that Aris is like a duck. So beautiful on the surface. And I can remember a power plant under the water. Yeah, it's just fighting and doing like an engine there. I'm still waiting for Aris 11 now. So, but if you ever used Aris before Aris 10, I think you definitely have to give Aris a second chance because the interface looks very beautiful. That's true. And it's powerful for sure with all the features.
I only had a very, very small glance at the interface, but we had a very, very huge experience with Aris 7 and the lacking front end. But still, Aris was and is a very powerful, I would even say heavy tool that you really should think about if you need it, right? Actually, at that time when I was in Siemens, even of Aris 7, we were maybe using 20-25% of the functionality that Aris provided, not more. And it is a powerful tool, for sure, at its cost. And you should really think about, okay, if you really want to go up and beyond in process, then this is something that you can do with Aris for sure. And with a good front end, with a good interface, it's even better. For sure, for the purpose that I have in my smaller, mid-sized company with a very low process maturity, this is the overkill. But still, as being very, very process-minded, I was focusing on Aris a lot, and I didn't dislike it. I was kind of trying to really sell it to the people, saying, okay, look, it has all the possibilities. You can do whatever you want, and you can do it we can present Aris processes in a way that people understand it and use it. We did develop not only the front end, but we also made a modeling convention for Aris, where we said, okay, let's model the processes in a way that the users have the most benefit of looking at it and using them. And it works also with Aris. But still, as I said, it is a very, very, very strong tool. And it does give you lots and lots of possibilities. And you should think about if you really need them or not. Right?
Yeah, that's true. And I think Aris strongly influenced the development of BPM throughout all the 25 years. I'm not sure.
At that time when we were using Aris was more or less neglecting BPMN. So it was hard. You were stuck to the EPC notation.
Yeah.
And all around you, they were starting to use BPMN, and Aris was saying, but I think with Aris 9, they opened up a little bit.
Yeah.
And with Aris 10, now they are in BPMN as well. And this is what I like. A tool should be kind of notation open. So it doesn't matter which kind of notation you use, the tool should provide the process, not the notation. The notation can be switched from one to the other. This is possible, I think, in IT today, that you say, okay, I want to see my process as an EPC. I want to see it as a BPMN or a UPN process flow, whatever.
Yeah, that's quite good. So coming from one of the dinosaurs of the BPM tool, Aris, jumping to the next interview, which was Ayo. Ayo is quite young tool. They started the development about a year ago, I think 1.5 years now. The first version, I think, was published in May 2022, if I'm not completely wrong. At that time, it was still basic, but they are making great progress there. As the name already says, Ayo, this includes AI. And I think I remember the I/O is for input-output there, so artificial intelligence input-output. That's part of the name there. And a few weeks ago, I recorded a video with David Lange. He is head of product at Ayo, where he introduced or he showcased the ChatGPT integration there, which was super interesting. So they are doing what the name promises. They have already an interface there to transfer process descriptions to ChatGPT and to get, for example, ideas for process improvement, which were quite good. So there is a video out there. We put that in the show notes as well if you haven't seen that up to now. So I'm quite impressed there. What about you?
Actually, Jobs von Heinze, the co-CEO of IO, he also got in contact with me and asked if I wanted to get a preview of this AI functionality already some weeks ago. And that was really a fun session that we had, where they really showed me, you just give the AI, by the hit of the button, you give the AI the chance to comment on the process and to give suggestions. It's really interesting and works. It's a good thing. So I like also the AI and interface in there, because I think this is also the future. You can use AI as a co-pilot to improve your processes, and that's really good. And what I also like is that it's really lean and small, this tool, and has a 100% Microsoft 365 integration. So I like it because a lot of companies are already using Microsoft 365. So it's just kind of an add-on to a standard software they are already having in place. And it makes use of all the functionalities of MS 365 that is anyhow there already. So it is a really, really lean approach to adding a tool to your business. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like. Also, it has a nice intuitive user interface, so the users are very easy to be integrated in design.
Yeah, it fits to the Microsoft design concept.
Implementing their processes. And actually, if you're used to the Microsoft design, then for sure you will directly find yourself in this. So that's also what I kind of like. It's really good for smaller business, I would say, because it's a lean and a small tool.
Yeah.
Maybe it has a limited functionality compared to, for example, ARIS. but you should really think about what you need and what you want.
Yeah, that's true. And they are developing quite fast, so it definitely makes sense to talk to Jobst or Rolf there if you're interested in tools like this. Yeah, super fascinating. Then the next interview was with Vincent Fischer from Modell Aachen. Their tool is called QWiki or QWiki, and the name already says it. It's coming from quality management. It's a wiki part, so there is a lot of text documentation of the processes. You can also add process models if you like to, but you don't have to. It's really the wiki approach there, and I completely fell in love with their Viking. So this little help character, it's like this customer service button you might know from the different internet pages. That's part of the tool, and the Viking welcomes the user and provides help. I talked to their founder, Carsten Behrens, a few weeks ago, and I asked them, wouldn't it be a good idea to connect that Viking with ChatGPT so that you can interact with that person more individual there? And they already thought about that. So that was super funny. I love this gamification aspect there. So that's what I have in mind.
This personal connection to the guy or girl in front of the screen is really good. So in the very first, it reminded me a little bit about this Windows paperclip feature that they had in, what was it? Windows 98, 95?
Yeah, something like
this.
That.
So it's really old, but that was also something that they got rid of it because it kind of, I don't know if it was a very early work of AI, but it was getting annoying when you most of the people just hit that functionality in using Windows. But if you do it in the right amount and really give a benefit to the user, then it's a good feature. And I like the very honest inclusion of the regulations of the normative and compliance, all these normative part of processes in there. The table views they're having is good for people that are really text bound. Yeah. And I'm an more optically focused guy, so I like to have visualizations and flows, and for sure possibilities is there, but again for me probably it is I would put the flows and the navigation more into the foreground for this one. So but still a good approach, and coming from the quality management side of the process management, for sure, as this is also coming from the management system, quality management part of the business to bring this into processes. This is one of the things that I really also support.
Yeah, Yeah, that's definitely a tool you have to have a look at as a comparison there. Cool. Then next was interfacing, interview with Scott Armstrong. Their tool is called EPC, Enterprise Process Center. It's a super powerful tool. Also a company with a quite long history. Was already founded, I think, in the 90s. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not wrong here.
No, it's a pretty old company, I think. But Scott was just he took over this company not so long ago, I think.
Exactly, just a few years ago.
He brought in new ideas and new power into
exactly
the company.
So that's a quite mature tool with a lot of functionality, a lot of features in the quality management area. So also with modules for audit and training management, if I'm not wrong. What I like about the process management aspect there most is their object-oriented approach. So all the objects you are using, a role, an activity, a process, a regulation, they can have their own life cycle. That was super interesting. So especially with regards to the methodology I'm using, having also life cycle for roles, for example, is something which is quite helpful to have an owner there. So that's interesting. And I'm now curious, have you had a look at it already?
I had a very small glimpse into this and all took into this. What I really like is they are coming from the idea of the digital twin in the whole company. And I really like the idea of the digital twin of the process and then working on this one. It goes into the direction of living inside your process in the virtual reality, whatever, right? And this kind of stuff. And going from there, this is a very, very good and I think a future-proof DNA of the tool to go for that and even improve that more. The object-oriented approach is something that I also really like, but I also have experience to go there. Is a lot of work for the people that are really maintaining the process landscape, the process environment, so to say. Yep. So, because just having a tool doesn't mean that all the objects you are working in with this tool really also have their working life cycle, because you have to put in work into life cycle manage all objects. Yeah. So it's a wonderful thing when you have the power, the force, and the strength to really use it. Right? Yeah. Comes again to the discussion: how much of the tool will be used in daily life?
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of the discussion which I had with Scott and his team upfront and also afterwards of the podcast recording, to strip it down, to reduce as much as possible of the features, so that the end user can simply log into the tool, click once, and access the processes which are relevant in a notation which is super easy to understand. And there they are super flexible as well with regards to the notation and how it looks and so on. That's interesting. It could even look like Post-its. Yeah, you can have BPMN 2.0. It looked like a Post-it mapping.
Yeah, right, for sure. Actually, that's just the visualization, right? Yeah. That's always the thing. Yeah, actually, strip it down is one direction, or take in your colleague AI to help you with managing the life cycles of all the objects. Yeah. So there is both ways possible, right? Yeah. And the perfect situation for that can be, depending on the size of the company using it, the one or the other direction, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Then next tool was BIG, Business Information Center from GB Tech. I talked to Mark Stromberg. We share a long history. It started somewhere at Lufthansa in 2005, something like that. And
you were a bit earlier than me. We started with BIG in 2007. So,
okay, yeah,
not with BIG, but with GB Tech.
With GB Tech.
We worked with them to create a visualization that is kind of, I can still see the genes of this visualization tool in the BIG platform today.
Yeah.
So part of the functionality of the BIG platform, I remember from we called it Dynamic Process World. The visualization we had for our harvest process software.
Yeah. So big as well. Is a tool with a long history, more than 10, 15 years now. It is super flexible as well. A lot of features there, a lot of customizing possibilities. They have a new user front end, so they redesigned the front end for the users.
I like that. I like that because it gets more and more lean and direct and basic, and it really thinks about, okay, the user doesn't care about how the software works, how the tool works. He wants to see his process, and that's it.
Yeah. And for me, big has always been something like a wild card in the past. So if you don't know which tool to use, for sure, have a look at GBTech, at big. It will fit your requirements. And
right. For me, it developed from just being a good front end into being the right mixture, a good mixture between very lean and basic, user-friendly, and nevertheless, having all the BPM functionality, being kind of a heavy, full-blown BPM tool, and it brings it all more or less together. So it's kind of the linking thing in the middle, so to say, between the very basic, just front-end focused tools and the heavy IT tools, like, for example, an RS. Yeah. So, maybe it's because of the gene that they really started off we want to create something usable out of ours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting story. Yeah. Okay, then next interview was with David Rüting, Command.
Yeah.
Also one of the smaller tools, but also with a quite long history already.
Yeah, actually, yeah, he has quite a long history. I've had a chat with him just recently, and it's interesting. But however, it's the name of the tool and also the analogy that he brings in. It's always jiggling me on thinking about all the ants crawling on my body when I'm discussing this tool. But yeah, for sure, it's a quite different approach to BPM. I think to the visualization for sure. What I really like is the SIPOC approach, because SIPOC for me was always the basic start of, if somebody doesn't have any idea about process, I go with him and take a SIPOC and say, okay, now let's just discuss. Mm-hmm. Who is delivering you something that you should work with? What is it what he gives to you? What do you do with it? What do you create with this? So what is kind of the result of your work, and to whom are you delivering this? So the classic SIPOC. So very, very easy and simple to bring people from outside the process into the process. And they are using this as the backbone of their tool and visualizing it, and very much focusing on the inputs and outputs to make sure that an output of one process silo, so to say, is the input for another process silo. Make sure that it is really the same thing.
Yeah.
To overcome interface issues. This is really, really a good approach. I like it. Visualization is also very much focusing on the lines, not so much on the elements. So more on the connections. Very, very interesting, different visualization, but yeah, also something to look at.
Yeah, and I remember they are also strong with regards to assignment of legal and normative requirements. So they are coming from integrated management system world there, which also applies to some of the other tools we already discussed. But I think they have a strong focus on this management system part.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last interview was with Sören Pommer from Glue, another interesting tool. And they are also using a very simplified notation, which is quite close to what I prefer. So that was super interesting. But I think you had a closer look onto Glue, right?
Yeah, actually, I was recommending Glue to you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and it was funny because the fact is they are representing the Danish philosophy, the Danish mentality of life, so to say. And I lived for some years in Denmark and really was inside this, and I really could find it in the strategy and the philosophy of the tools. Really, one thing is like the tool has to be so simple that it is easier to follow the process than using the shortcut.
Yeah,
that's typical for Danish mentality, so to say. You have to be as simple as possible, and it has to be more rewarding to go the right path than using the shortcut.
Yeah.
And that's the backbone of the philosophy of Glue, and that's what I really like. And then again, it comes to the collaboration part, so the users are integrated very well in not only working in but also working on the process. Again, like with IO, this is a very lean tool, fully integrated in MS 365, so also using all those functionalities, very similar in that respect to IO as well. And I discussed for sure with Søren a little bit, and he did in the beginning, he didn't recognize that I was able to discuss with him in Danish. And when I just commented some of his posts on LinkedIn in Danish, he came back with open eyes to me and said, "Oh," because it's not a commonly spoken language, even in Northern Europe. However, funny thing, and I like the lean approach again here on this tool for this. So yeah, and it is focusing on the roles and on the people. So goes in the direction what we are looking at of really being human-centric.
Yes, super interesting. And now comes the question of all questions. And for sure, there will be more tool interviews. So don't worry about that. Some more are in the pipeline. But for now, which tool is your favorite, Martin?
That's really hard to say. Actually, we discussed a lot of different perspectives on the tools that we already see here and have. And for sure, I do also have different perspectives for myself or for the company I work for. Looking at it from the BPM expert perspective as a person, for me, I really like those tools that are really kind of giving the possibility to go into high maturity process environments like automation, digitalization, process mining, process simulation. This is great for sure. But this is only the expert view, and thinking about, okay, in our company with a low process maturity, we need to have something that is much more user focused, that is much more integrating the intuitivity of the people that are working in the process to be able to understand and to use this tool as a support for their work and not as a burden. And then the much simpler and visually very attractive tools are much more interesting for that perspective, for sure, that the people are integrated well. So all those tools that really foster the collaboration between the process users and the process experts is really something that we should have in mind. As said, the visualization is something very, very important, and the intuitivity that the people really like to use the tool. That they really say, okay, yeah, there's something there. We have to use it, but it's just adding more time to my work, and I don't really like that. That's not helping us. And this is always the danger when the people are looking too much into the expert view of a tool and not into the user and the very basic experience that the user should get. So that's important. And yeah, actually, those tools there, they all have their pros and cons for sure in both by perspective of this. It's not yet really the tool that fits everything that I have in mind. Is not I did not find yet, so to say. So for sure, looking forward for getting more insight also into other tools through your podcast, and also for me, I'm trying to get in contact with people out there in other tool providers with other ideas as well. This is something where I'm always open and really looking forward for even more suggestions. The good thing is that we are not in a hurry to get a tool. Anyhow, we are in our IT environment still very basic and not yet fully developed, and is still discussing how much of Microsoft 365 we are actually using in our company, for example. And this is, as we have seen now also already in at least part of the tools that are on the market, Microsoft 365 is a good idea to have in use to a specific extent to really make use of all the functionalities of the tools. So there are some things where I say, okay, lucky me, I can still check the market, look for everything and find new possibilities, because this year we will not get into buying a tool. We will this is something for the next year, probably when we are more mature in also our environment, to integrate a tool into our IT environment.
Yeah. Okay. And I can only add to what you just said. For me, it depends. Yeah, it depends on the requirements of the organization, especially on the maturity level of an organization. What do you want to achieve with the tool? And then you have to pick the right one. And with regards to the tools we just discussed, I think there are a lot of really cool features. Yeah, like the AI approach of Ayo, or the Viking as a gamification approach in QWiki, or the super cool new interface of RS10, or I don't know, it's not that new, but it looks really lean and clean. And combining all these great features in one tool would be the perfect tool for me. So that's why I can't say that I have one favorite tool. There are a really cool approach out there, and I would recommend to our listeners to have a look onto the tools on their own.
Absolutely. It is important that you take a look at a lot of different possibilities and make your decision depending on the situation your company and you are in, and what is the maturity of your process management environment you have, and what are the goals, what are the aims you're going for with implementing these tools. Then for sure, one or the other tool is more suitable for you than another. So there is no one fits all, that's for sure. There is no one tool has it all, the ideas that we are having. And you always have to find the best fitting match from your needs, your requirements, to what does the tool offer and how does it present, and how does it work out in the tool for you. Does it fit to your culture in your company? Does it fit to your environment that you have? And ask the users, get the buy-in from them, show them examples, because they are the ones that in the end have to live with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there you can already apply a new process principle to involve the people. So ask them, what do you like? What do you need? And how can you find your process here and there? And what do you prefer? So be a role model there also for your own process of process management in that case. So if you are going to select a tool, involve the people, ask them for their opinion. That's super cool. And that basically leads us to the landing of this episode. And because of your long history in process management, what is your, I would say, your top recommendation to our listeners to rethink processes, to get to a more human-centric approach, to excite people for processes?
Yeah, actually, as I just said, collaboration, ask the people, get the people involved. This is the most important thing. Step out of your ivory tower of the expertise, because for sure it can be great for you. It can be great for the expert. It can be great for the IT department or for the QM department, for whoever is driving the process management approach in your company. But go to the people that will live in the processes, that have to work with it, that are daily working in the process. They also have the best recommendations of what could be done better. They also, for sure, there's a lot of whining then, there will be a lot of complaining then, but you have to take this in. Why are they complaining? Because they are living with something that they are probably never asked if it fits their work. And this is the first and best thing, to really go there and ask the people. Create an atmosphere, an open atmosphere of continual improvement, of idea creation, of idea implementation, of lean ideas, to bring the process to a very smart proceeding, so to say, that then the people are really seeing there is a benefit on thinking about how do we work.
Yeah.
And then they give their input automatically. You get it from them for free. That's the most important thing, I think. Bring the people into the decisions, bring the people into the creation, into the improvement and implementation of the processes.
Yeah, very good. And we talked about tools a lot, but which topic, method, tool, expert, whatever is your recommendation I should have a closer look at to get more ideas on rethinking processes?
Right. Well, actually, for sure, the collaboration is one thing. the culture is important for thinking about that. So thinking about company culture, thinking about culture changes, thinking about change management, because culture is the thing that is the slowest to develop, to change in a company. You're not talking about, let's do it. You're talking about years, you're talking about decades of changing culture and people. And this is so much influencing on how the people work. And how the people work is defined by the processes.
Yeah.
And so thinking about change management, how to implement change and processes in the company, this is something that I think is a good thing about integrating a human-centric process approach. There is not really something where say, okay, this is the person to look at. But there is for sure, especially I like LinkedIn because there are so many nice bubbles. I'm part of several different bubbles in LinkedIn. I'm part of the QM bubble. I'm part of the change management bubble. I'm part of the lean bubble. I'm part of the process bubble. I'm part of the communication bubble, and so on. So this is very interesting to go there and look for experts. They come up there everywhere. Just look about this. So I've given you some groups where I'm constantly involved or not involved, but at least looking in or listening in. And this is, for example, the change management group for process management and change management in LinkedIn. That is the lean and continual improvement group in LinkedIn. Also very interesting because processes can only be good when they are lean. And you have to get rid of all the waste in your process. And if you start automate or digitalize the process, you should first think about, okay, what can I throw away from this process? Because if you're digitalizing or automating all the shit that is in your process, like Mr. Dirks, you know him, probably said, well, digitalizing a shit process gives you a shitty digital process, nothing else. So it doesn't help. So this is lean. It's very important. So lean group is good. Tool-wise, there's one thing I think I have given you the name once or twice. This is a tool that goes more or less in the direction of IO and Glue. It's another tool coming from Germany. It's called BPanda, BPanda. Also it's called Business Processes and Automation or something like this. Don't quote me on the A. It's from a company called MID. They are located in Nuremberg. And it's also very small and smart and fresh and agile, I would say. They have a very big advantage, I think, is when you are thinking ahead of BPM into enterprise architecture management, they have the next tool linked to it that they can integrate together. So they have the Innovator, that's an EAM BPM tool that is really huge and not bad. But for starting with BPM, it's the BPanda that really is a nice thing. So that's also one thing to look at. And people-wise, I'm coming back to the culture. There is a guy here from Germany as well. He has a channel on YouTube, and he's also active on LinkedIn. It's Edward Karnitz, and he calls his channel Organisationsentfaltung. It's in German, yes, but I think no matter. This is very interesting because he is connecting organization, processes, culture, improvements, change, all this together, not on a process view, not on an IT view, but more on a cultural and organizational view. Very interesting. So also some input for maybe a future episode on human-centric business process management, integrating the people and the culture into the process.
Yeah, cool. It's all written down. So a lot of input for the pipeline of episodes. That's super cool. Martin, where can our listeners learn more about your activities, and how can vendors pitch their tools to you? How can they reach you?
Actually, as we have already noted and mentioned quite often today here, is I'm using LinkedIn a lot to also get information or spread information as well. So you can reach me on LinkedIn with my name, Martin Holling. I'm there, quite active, mainly in the process bubble, so to say. And also I do have, for my already 10-year-old freelancing activities in the process consultancy, I have a landing page that is living-processes living.de, livingprocesses.de, that you can also use to get in contact with me, or also to read a little bit about my ideas about BPM.
Yeah, that's super interesting. You have to. I put the link into the show notes, so it's easy to access the page afterwards.
Great.
Wow. What a ride. What a flight. Super interesting.
A little bit bumpy here and there.
No, yeah, but that's part of a good flight experience, I'd say.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Thank you so much for listening to all the episodes. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It gave me so much input, really.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now the final question. How would you describe your flight experience here today with just 3 words?
Yeah, well, funny enough, something very old out of my Siemens career comes into my mind. Actually, the Siemens Employee Engagement Initiative is called 3I. It's called Initiatives, Innovations, and Ideas, right?
Okay.
3I. So right now, I would also describe this flight with 3 words like 3I. It is like inspiring and insightful, and also, again, some new ideas really using this podcast also came out, and also in the discussion right now, I took out from this single recording also some ideas for how to proceed. So inspiring, insightful, and new ideas.
Perfect. I also enjoyed our conversation, and I'm already looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, I think we can definitely, we have enough topics that we can discuss on.
Absolutely. But now that's it for today. So thank you, Martin, so much.
Yeah,
have a great day.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. It was fun being here.
Let's recap today's new process inspiration.
Well, I don't think that the recap of my search for human-centric BPM tool really needs a recap. But to answer the question from the introduction, if I really found human-centric BPM tool, well, as I said, there are some promising tools and they are having great features, but I'd say my search will continue. So there will be more tool interviews coming up. In addition to this, also thanks to Martin, I have a growing list of topics and guests for more New Process podcast episodes. But due to the fact that I'm still producing just in time to stay up to date and catch up the latest news, there will be a short summer break until the end of August without new episodes. But maybe you can jump back to one of the evergreen episodes with Ole Tillmann, for example, on how to pitch your process. That was episode 11. Or with Jasmine Karatas on gamification. That's episode 16. Or with Mika Lenonen on community building, which was episode 10. But for now, thank you much for listening. Have a great day. Enjoy this summertime. Bye-bye and auf Wiedersehen.
You've been listening to the New Process Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode for more tools, methods, and best practices to rethink your process and push it to the next level. Thank you for listening.
Before you leave, if you enjoyed this episode of the New Process Podcast, it would be great if you share it with other BPM enthusiasts. And in addition to that, it would be awesome if you leave a review on your favorite podcast platform so that even more people can find this podcast and start rethinking processes. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.